Hello, Garland Nixon here. And as you probably noticed, I've been gone for a few days. I even runny mouth people like me on YouTube have to take a few days every now and then. So I went down to the ocean for 4 days to get away. But I'm back. Let's talk. Hello, hello, all. And there's Chicken Patty, as always, with four exclamation marks. As you probably know, if you've been listening to this channel for a long time, Chicken Patty is, of course, the philosophical leader of the Garland Nixon YouTube movement, whatever that means. She is the foundation of this entire YouTube channel. So, hooray, Chicken Patty. Kinky, there's Kinky, all of our dear friends who've been around for so long, really appreciate it. The Sparkster, and on and on and on. All right. So let's talk. So I just got back and at the beach for 4 days. And the first thing I did, you got to know me. The first thing I did when I got back was jumped on the scale. I'm like, oh my God, I've been eating everything that won't move for 4 days. And my daughter tells me I have body dysmorphia. I'm one of these people that always think I'm overweight. The type. I'm a very sick man. But as you know by watching this channel, but I have a lot of fun. So let's go on and talk about this whole free speech thing. And I'll tell you what made me think about this while I was away. Of course, I'm listening to the news here and there. And one of the things that went down was the Elon Musk Trump interview on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it is. And of course, Elon Musk, Mr. Free Speech. And well, we all know. Look, here's the bottom line. I think, let me talk about Elon Musk and free speech for a second. As many people know, I'm not on X. Twitter, for those of you who don't know the story, a year ago, and this is part of the free speech discussion, so I guess I'll throw this in there. There may not be people that don't know the story of what happened, why I'm not on X, and why my blue check mark certification is still up there. About a year ago, I got an email August 21st, and it said, hey, you've got to change your password. And I said, fair enough. And I tried to change my password. And I got another email that says something about a locked account. I said, whatever. So I provided them. I'm like, hey, this is a certified account. They sent me all the information. And, it's a verified blue check mark. So I've given them my extra information. When they ask for it, we need further information to certify you. And then congratulations, you're certified. So I figured this is no problem. I send them the information. I get an email that says, we can't verify you as the owner of the account. And since we can't verify you as owner of the account, we can't give you any information about the actual owner of the account. So therefore, feel free to start another account. But this particular account with 120,000 followers, you ain't seeing it again, buddy. So I said, okay. And I wrote up a complaint for the court. And I have sat on it for a number of reasons. And as keep in mind that they also charge me for the account. So I'm paying. So I'm not just a Twitter member or something like that. I'm actually a paid subscriber. I paid for a service and now they don't give me the service. So they had just charged me for a year. And after 1 month after they charged me for a year, they don't know who I am anymore. And so this June, they just charged me for another year. So the account is at Garland Nixon. The email address that they email to is garlandin@gmail.com. The bank account that pays for the second year in a row for that account is a bank account that is owned by Garland Nixon. But for whatever reason, they can't figure out who the owner is. And the owner has been the person who has owned that account with the same exact username and password since 2009 is, of course, Garland Nixon. So I can understand where that be confusing. Now, I also understand that they do have another company that does their verifications and certifications. So whatever. So my position is quite clear. You charge me for a service, and you're charging a lot of other people for that service. And when the people come to you and say, look, when somebody comes to you, if I rent you an apartment and you pay me for a year, and you come home and you can't get in your apartment because I changed the lock, and you say, hey, Garland, you just rented me an apartment I paid for a year. And I say, I don't know who owns that apartment. And you say, but I paid for that apartment. I can't help you. I can't let you into that apartment. I have no idea who owned it, but I'd be happy to rent you a second apartment if you're willing to pay. Well, I just paid for one and you locked me out. Why should I rent a second one? And now I look around and you got hundreds of thousands of apartments. You're probably defrauding a lot of people, aren't you? The court probably needs to step in because you are defrauding a lot of people. You're charging for a service. And when someone calls upon you for that service, you say, I'm unable to provide the service that I'm advertising and charging you for. That's called fraud. It's the clearest case of fraud I have ever seen. I've seen a lot of cases of fraud, but to tell somebody to charge somebody for something and then tell them, I don't know who owns it, and then come back the next year and charge you, but they just took another years out of my bank account for that. And they're doing it to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. So I need the court to step in and say, hey, you can't do that to anybody else. So at any rate, so I'm just saying, quite possibly, I wanted to see if they were going to charge me for another year before I move forward. So that action has to be dealt with. But for that, there are a lot of people that have said to me, Carlin, you're just going to sit around. I'm like, there's an old saying, beware the fury of a patient man. Okay, let us move on. So why do I say all of that? I want to give you a piece. There are some people that may not have a background on my X account, but Mr. Free Speech, Elon Musk, has a discussion with Trump the other day. Now let's start here. And this is interesting. Before he gives it, he gets a letter from some kind of a contact from the EU, the European Union, and they say to him, there could be lies, there could be things told, and that if you don't address that, if you don't deal with potential lies and misinformation, then we could shut Twitter down in the entire European Union. That's interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, I watched a debate with Joe Biden and Trump, and in that debate, Joe Biden said that he had not given 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. Didn't do it, but at the time he'd already gave over 12,000 of them. That's not, you can, these days they call it misinformation. Back in all of us, our day, we just called it a liar. That's it. We just called it a lie. Joe Biden told flat out lies. He told lies about a lot of things. Dr. Fauci went in before Congress, and there is ample evidence that he may have knowingly made false statements. I'm not going to say that I can make a judgment that he has, but it certainly appears that when he said they weren't involved in gain of function research, that they were involved in gain of function research, and he knew it. If those things are true, then these are lies. So what's interesting is the European Union and its political ilk, people like that, are only concerned about lies and misinformation when the so-called lies and misinformation are something that runs against the narratives that they're pushing. It also demonstrates something that we've got to we need to understand about this whole freedom of speech stuff, and that is, I would suspect, again, I'm just guessing, that this was coordinated with the White House. In the same way that in 2020, when the FBI scam with the Hunter Biden laptop, that was apparently coordinated through the White House and through the CIA. The 51 intelligence liars who said that the Hunter Biden laptop story had all of the earmarks of Russian disinformation. Remember that? And we've since found out that it was Tony Blinken who was working on Joe Biden's campaign, who set that whole thing up, who made the phone calls, who worked with the CIA to set that up, all illegal, all criminal actions, right? To set all of that up. So I'm suspecting strongly that the Biden administration worked with the EU, that the Biden administration knew that if they tried to pull that off here, if they tried to use any of their surrogates in the United States, that it could set up some kind of a constitutional crisis for them should it come back to them, number one. And number two, that if they lose from Trump in a couple of months, that his people might just be looking all over that. So they figured, hey, we'll outsource this to the EU. In the same way that the investigation into Trump, the whole Russian uh, interference investigation into Trump, Crossfire Hurricane, the one that John Durham investigated, which was kind of a scam investigation anyway. But one of the things that he found was that the FBI, the intelligence agencies, never had any predicate. They did not have a legitimate predicate to begin an investigation with Trump. If you think about this, the Democrats and their supporters right now, most of these people still believe the Russian interference, Trump Russian bot crap. They still believe it, even though an investigation found not only that it wasn't true, but that the FBI did not even have a legitimate predicate to start an investigation. And they still believe it because they're playing games. And the game is we just say what we want. We own the media. We tell all the lies we want. We perpetrate all the misinformation and things that go against our narrative. We call it misinformation. The question becomes, if you're going to see the whole misinformation scam, as I call it, the whole free speech scam, as I call it, comes down to this. If I say misinformation, who decides what is and isn't misinformation? And from where does their authority, their credibility, and their expertise arise to give them the authority, the moral authority, the legal authority, the knowledge, etc., to make those kind of decisions, to make the determinations as to what is misinformation? You had if you remember a while back, they had this thing called the Misinformation Governance Board or Committee that was going to be started in the Department of Homeland Security, right? They were going to start this thing up. And this woman named Nina Jankowicz was involved. And when you look into her and look into her background, here's what you end up finding out. This whole misinformation, the people out there here that are doing so-called misinformation research and things of that nature, they are self-appointed experts. They're kind of like me in a way, in some way. At least I make an effort. Here's what I mean. I consider myself a political analyst, a geopolitical analyst. How did I become a geopolitical analyst? I was working at this radio station in 2006. And I said to the guy that owned the station, who's a good friend of mine, I said, hey, can I get a business card made that says Garland Nixon, Senior Political Analyst? He said, sure. I got a card made that said Garland Nixon, Senior Political Analyst. That's how I became a senior political analyst. And I said, hey, can I tell people that I'm the senior political analyst for this radio station? He said, sure, you're pretty good. I said, okay, great. There we go. I was a senior political analyst, but here's the thing about it. I didn't just go around handing people a hollow card, pretending like I knew everything. I read, as I always do, everything I could get my stinking hands on about politics and then some. Studied, read, right? When I taught at college, the chair of our department, I didn't have a PhD, but the chair of our department said, Garland, I don't know any of our PhDs that have read more books than you. It's unbelievable every time I talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, because I love to read. I don't read to learn necessarily. I don't read to get a PhD. I read because I love to read and I love to learn and I love to read and I love to read. And I read, right? So I got my education because I love to read as a political analyst. I was reading all kinds of stuff, my God, about everything. But then at that point, I said, let me start reading about politics. So I feel I'm well educated, self educated when it comes to politics. But that's how I became a political analyst and a political expert, self made, right? Well, that's what you got to some extent in the misinformation. If you look into the people that run these groups, misinformation groups, here's the only difference. They don't even have an education. They don't even have a self-education. They just decided, you know what? I think I'm going to get a job on a think tank and call myself a misinformation person. And all they really are, this is the whole misinformation scam, and most of you probably know it. The whole misinformation scam is about this. It's about narrative control. It is about the neocons, the government, the intelligence operatives come out with a narrative. This is the way things are. And the job of the misinformation scammers, the misinformation group, is to protect that narrative at all costs, to attack anyone who pushes back against the narrative, to attack any politician that could be a threat to the narrative, to try to shut down anything that people are saying that could be a legitimate discussion that is counter to the narrative, to try to convince you not to do your own research. We've already got a narrative. What do you need to research for? The government has given you a narrative. The ruling elite has given you a narrative. You do not need to do any research. So what happened the other night? Oh, Mr. Free Speech, Elon Musk, and I say that facetiously, had Trump on there. And look, here's the bottom line. Donald Trump's running for president. People have a right to hear what the hell he has to say. What is democracy about? It ain't about what the Democrats are doing right now, which is trying to sue every state they can to get RFK Jr. and Jill Stein thrown off the ballot. No, that's not democracy. It's not about saying, oh, well, you know what? Even though it certainly appears that Nicolas Maduro won the election, we decided it's another guy, Edmundo Gonzalez or something. No, it is about informed voters. You can't have democracy without informed voters. So I don't care. Even think about this. Even if an informed voters means free speech, you need a freedom of speech. You need people to be able to challenge the narrative. Think about this. If they get paper ballots, no voting machines, everybody has to have an ID, a thumbprint. Like in Venezuela, they actually thumbprint. You walk up, when you turn 14 in Venezuela, you get an identification, and that identification has your picture and your thumbprint. When you walk up to the machine, let's say you go to vote, and let's say you forgot or lost your ID. They got a thumb. You put your thumb on this machine, and when you do it, read your thumbprint, and it puts a picture of you and a picture of your ID up there, so they know who every person is, and you only get to vote for once, right? So, but even if you have the purest, like I've been in Venezuela, and I have been an observer of the election for Venezuela, an international observer, traveled throughout Venezuela, went to the polling places, everything, right? And even if you have an election process, an electoral process that's as clean as Venezuela's, because I can't imagine having seen it from beginning to the end, one that could be cleaner. Even if you got that, it's still not democracy if people don't know what the hell they're voting for. If you have people bamboozled, if people are confused, if people believe things that are patently absurd. What did you have? You had people that believed that Donald Trump was working for the Russians, even though every smidgen of that narrative had been destroyed, but they kept repeating it. Right? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I'm running against Kamala Harris, and they start a campaign in all of on MSNBC and CNN, New York Times. Garland Nixon's a werewolf. Why? When the moon comes out, he's going to grow hair and fangs, and he's going to tear your guts out, Jim. He'll tear your lungs out, right? As Warren Zevon said in the great song, infamous Werewolves of London, right? So everybody looks at my policies, and they look at Kamala's policies, and they're like, wow, everybody would get Medicare and get coverage, and Garland would stop the wars, and seniors would get increased health care, and oh my gosh, we would work to bring peace with our brethren all over the world, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, I'm all for that. Only one problem. What? Well, I've been watching MSNBC and CNN. I like Garland, love his policies. They're all for me. But You may disagree. You might not like Medicare for all, but you might say, but look, he's talking about peace and no World War III and stopping genocide support and apartheid support. So there may be some things you like, some things you don't. But you weigh me against Kamala Harris and you say, I'm going to go with Garland, except for one problem. MSNBC has been saying day and night, when the moon gets full, Garland's going to turn into a hairy, fanged, foul beast and tear everyone to shreds, right? And you say, yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I'd love to vote for the guy, but a werewolf, maybe if he was a zombie, okay, I'm used to politicians being zombies. Most of them don't have brains to eat out anyway. But I think a werewolf's pushing it a little too far. I'm going to pull it. I'm going to pull the lever for Kamala Harris. Whoop. Everything was pure. Everything was perfectly clean. Paper ballots, the best IDs, thumbprints, you name it. But there's no such thing as werewolves. And you made a decision as to who you were going to vote for because you thought one of the candidates was a werewolf, and werewolves don't exist. Of course, werewolves exist in movies, pretty good ones, I might add. Silver Bullet's a great one. But my point being, you're an uninformed voter. So do you have democracy? Particularly if the system deliberately misleads you. Just think, there are so many places that the system can thwart democracy and can affect in a negative or controlling way the voting process, right? But the most obvious and the least discussed is the mind of the voter. See, you got all these conservatives running around. We got to have IDs. Like, what the hell good is an ID if you think you wanted freaking people running as a werewolf, which is effectively what we had in 2020. You had people who literally every bit of the Russiagate misinformation operation was what it was. Every bit of it had been disproven. In fact, we found that members of the Democratic Party, members of the intelligence community had deliberately lied, had deliberately misled people, had deliberately spread misinformation through omission or commission, right? We found everything was wrong, and you still had millions and millions of people who believed it. So is it democracy if the voters believe in werewolves? If nobody on MSNBC or CNN in the middle of a broadcast about how Garland is a foul-fanged beast and he's going to kill everybody in the White House the first day the full moon turns, if nobody on the stage goes, excuse me, hey, whoa, Anderson Cooper, time out. Oh, what's this segment we're doing again? Yeah, it's Garland Nixon. He's a foul beast. He's going to turn into a werewolf and tear them all to shreds. Anderson, yeah. And he looks around and there's various members, CNN people. And he's like, what did you just Dr. Sanjay Gupta? I would think they look around, they're like, guys. What? Did anybody ever tell you guys there's no such thing as werewolves? And they all went, oh. We're going to commercial break. And then they go to commercial break and come back and that guy's gone. But of course, and they go back to, here's a picture of a werewolf. Here's a picture of Garland Nixon. Have you ever seen the two in the room at the same time? Oh, I bet you haven't, because that some bitch is a werewolf. Tell you that right now. But at least somebody somewhere said, hey, voting public, there's no such thing as werewolves. So we do not have democracy. We do not have democracy when, in fact, the president, the former president of the United States, and a person who is running for president right now goes on Twitter. Everybody should listen. Here's what I have to say. I don't care if you like Trump. I don't care if you don't like Trump. He's running for president. You need to be an informed voter. You need to listen to what he has to say. You need to understand. You need to say, well, that makes sense to me, or that doesn't make sense to me. That's wise. You would be an informed voter. Instead, you got EU saying, how come you're not policing the speech of Trump in real time? He may lie. That doesn't apply to Kamala Harris. That doesn't apply to Joe Biden. See, again, that's what we have. It only, what was the term? Paul Robeson Jr. used to always use a term, and he would say, rule of law versus arbitrary application of the law. Rule of law being what? A consistent, transparent set of standards, right? You cannot have consistency. If you got misinformation, somebody, well, this is, I'm sorry, sir, that's misinformation. Okay. How do I know that? I know it's misinformation because we have a transparent set of standards. Misinformation consists of the following things: one, blah, 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 two, three, four, five. Anybody can find it. We can go online to misinformationstandards.com. And there you go. Right? Transparent, consistent. We don't care who it is. If it's Trump, if it's Biden, if it's Harris, this applies. These are the standards of misinformation. Therefore, when Joe Biden said, hey, I haven't given Israel any 2,000-pound bombs whatsoever, with the exception of the 12,000 2-pound bombs that I actually gave them, the lights go, bah, bah, behind them, the lights are going off, red lights are blinking, bah, 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 misinformation, whatever you want to call it. We didn't use words like that back in my day. We said he's a lying bastard. But today it's got to be misinformation. There ain't no lying bastards anymore. We got lying bastards, right? That's all Joe Biden was. So what we have now is a term: misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, which these terms in and of themselves are used to do two things. Number one, to thwart free speech. And number two, to confuse the hell out of people, because they can't really thwart free speech if they can't confuse you, because you're going to ask for a consistent set of standards. You're going to say, well, I can say this. No, you can't. It's misinformation. And if worse comes to worse, then you say, well, but it's true. Yes, but it's a Russian talking point. What does that mean? That's what the Russians are saying. It's one of their talking points, but it's true. What difference does it make? Think about this. What's going on with Scott Ritter right now? So in our so-called land of free speech, they're beating down his door. The FBI is coming in. What's going on? Oh, you're you got to fill out a FARA, a Foreign Agent Registration Act, which means you're acting as an agent for a foreign government, right? Why? Because he's writing op-eds, he's writing various pieces, and a foreign government, foreign newspaper is saying, hey, we want to publish those and we'll pay you for it. How is that representing a foreign government? If I write an article and it says, I think the US provoked the war in Ukraine, and I write it because I can substantiate it, not saying I'm right or wrong, I happen to believe that. And I can substantiate why I believe it. For the following reasons, I believe the US deliberately provoked the war in Ukraine in an effort to take Russia down, to destroy Russia, et cetera, right? Okay. And a Russian newspaper says, hey, that's a pretty good story. Can I buy it? And I say, sure. Are you kidding me? We'll pay you to write articles. Sure. I'll write an article and send it to you. If you like it, you write it. If you don't buy it, if you don't, keep your money. It's up to you. If Press TV in Iran wants to buy it, if the Deutsche Welle in Germany wants to buy it, if Australian Broadcasting Corporation wants to buy it, it's for sale. All of them can get it. No problem at all. You can get it. You pay me for it. If they say, well, it has to be exclusive to us, okay. I'm going to write what I want. Now, if you don't like it, don't publish it. Just send it back and say, we can't use it. How is that representing a foreign government? Now, I guarantee you this. If I wrote an article that said the Russians are wrong and the Iranians are evil and North Korea is crazy scum, and Russia said, oh, well, we'd like to buy that, and they bought it and they put it in RT, you think the government would come after me? No, because they're not coming after me for writing articles that represent a foreign government. Just the opposite. They are coming after me because my speech opposes the narrative of the US government. And they say it's national security. What national security has now become this: if you're pushing back on lies of the national security state. If you look at something that they said and you say, I have ample evidence that either one of two things is true, that either you're deliberately lying, which is most likely the case, or that your hypothesis is highly flawed based on the data and research that I've been able to acquire and evaluate. And I should be able to say that. The government says Iran has a nuclear 6 minutes, days, hours, every couple months when they're angry at Iran, you would get an article, Iran is only weeks away from hours away, days away, minutes away from a nuclear weapon, right? In fact, they're so close, they've actually invented a time machine and they're going to go backwards in time. In fact, they got a nuclear weapon 3 months ago. Now, we haven't seen it yet because they're going to go into a time machine, go backwards, redo history. We'll blink our eyes. There'll be a wave of time will change, and suddenly they'll have it. And they already had it. Not only will they have it now, they've had it for 3 months. That's how close they are. They're actually going to get it in reverse, utilizing a time machine. That's the only thing they haven't done. They're going to get it in an hour, a week, a minute, a second. Yesterday, they've already had it. Ben had it. They had it before we had it. I think it was the 1930s whenever I actually got one. That's the direction they go in, right? Lies, lies, lies about Iran and nuclear weapons. And to be quite frank, if I was Iran, I'd probably already have a nuclear weapon. Look at North Korea. The only reason we haven't attacked North Korea is because they got nuclear weapons. If I was Iran, I mean, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. Hey, Iran is not calling, checking my YouTube channel like, hey, what do you think we should do there, Mr. Akhmeni? I don't know. Let's take a look at Garland Nixon's YouTube channel and we'll get some direction. I don't think they're doing that. But if they were, if I were them, yeah, damn Skippy, I'd have a nuclear. Yeah, come on. Israel's over there like, hey, doggone it, we've attacked you, we've provoked you, we've done everything terrible to you, and if you try to fight back, we'll use a nuclear weapon. If I was Iran, I'd be like, yeah, that'd be two of us, buddy. If I was Iran, who knows? I have heard rumors, just rumors, that there are people that know that Iran already has a nuclear weapon. I heard those rumors. Whether they do, I'll put it like this. The rumors that I heard, how was it stated? That they have undeclared weapons that are extremely powerful. That's so you read between the lines. Who knows? Do they have them? Do they not have them? I don't know. But I'm telling you, I probably would if I was them. But my point being this. You ever notice the government never goes after anybody who says every 6 months that Iran is going to have nuclear weapons in 2 days and 2 weeks? In fact, I'll say this. If somebody says Iran's going to have nuclear weapons in 2 weeks, I'd say, well, here's what I'm going to do. You sure they can have them in 14 days? Absolutely. So then in 15 days, if they don't have them, that means they don't want them. Because if they could have them in 14 days and they wanted them now, they'd have them in 14 days. But according to you, they want them in 14. They could have them in 14 days. So if I check in 15 days and they ain't got them, that means that it is a choice. And you have to admit at that point that Iran, by choice, doesn't have nuclear weapons because by your own admission, they could have had them in 14 days. See, nobody ever makes that argument that the people who hold up a picture of a bomb, how many times have Netanyahu done that and said, oh boy, the Iranians could have nuclear weapons within the next fill in the blank. Nobody ever says, how long is that, BB? 30 days. Okay, I'll see you in 31 days. Okay, 31 days. And they could have had them yesterday, but they don't have them, do they? Yeah, that means they don't want them, kind of, doesn't it, BB? Kind of means that, as you said, they could have them, but they obviously don't want them. Or they could have built them. If I was around, I probably would. But at any rate, so we go on. Why is it that nobody does that? Nobody says, hey, you said Iran was going to have weapons in 48 hours and they don't have them. We must question that narrative. No, we don't do that. Why? The EU didn't contact Elon Musk because they were afraid that Trump was going to say something untrue. Really? If that's the case, then, what politician would be able to say a mumbling word out of his mouth? The idea that we're supposed to believe that the EU or any kind of an organization like that is concerned that a politician may lie and they are acting preemptively on behalf of the people so that the people don't hear lies. You got to be an idiot to believe that. I don't know. Unfortunately, there are idiots that believe that, but that ain't the case. They're not trying to protect us from lies. They're trying to protect their narratives. And the whole misinformation scam, really, disinformation, malinformation, they made up all of these words. Why? You notice something? When did these words start to arise? During COVID. And what else happened during COVID? The rise of Odyssey, the rise of Rumble, the rise of Rockfin, right? The rise of Telegram, the rise of various and sundry means of communication, ulterior methods of news, ulterior methods of the sharing and transfer of information. And when all of that happened, and the government could then say, here's the truth. And 100 people like Garland could stick their hands up and say, I don't believe that, and this is why. And give a valid reason. All of a sudden, they needed to deal with misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. The people who lied about everything. I mean, if you think about that, right? The people with a history of lying. The history, whether it's Vietnam, remember the Maine, the Spanish-American War. I mean, every war they've lied about. Um, they lied about both Iraq attacks. They lied about the Libya attack. Remember that? Susan Rice telling us that the Libyans were giving their soldiers Viagra so they could rape women. I mean, on and on and on. Lie after lie after lie. The whole Russiagate scam with Trump, a complete lie. All these people do is lie. And now the biggest lie is this. The people who lie all the time want to protect us from lies. Imagine that. Imagine that. The people who lie all the time, the big lie, the grand finale, the crescendo of all lies. This is the big one. This is the one they've been working their way up to for centuries, is to lie to us about everything. And in the end, come to us and tell us that they are here to protect us from lies. And we got people stupid enough to believe it. Number one. Number two, they are here to protect us from lies. What they am I talking about? I'm talking about the ruling elite. I'm talking about the people who control, not Joe Biden, not Kamala Harris, but the people behind them, the people who write the checks, the people who control them. You know, let me tell you something, experience. The most powerful politician in a state is the senior senator, right? That's going to be the person who runs the political machine. The senior senator in a state is going to be your most powerful politician. And in my state, some years back, I was still a Democrat, and I was going to some fundraisers at the homes of very, very powerful, very wealthy people. And I met the person who basically funded the senior politician, the Democrat, the senior senator in my state. And I came to learn that that person pulled punches. You know what I mean? That, as they say, that dude was the shot caller, right? That this guy, because he funded the senior senator and then the senior senator's family, that this dude was the man with all the power. And I came to understand. And you know what? You never. I'm not going to say his name. You've never heard of him. Never heard of his name. You'd have no idea who it is. There are these people that are unthinkably rich billionaires, and you don't even know who they are, and you never know who they are. And the senior senator in the state of Maryland at that time was a voice for this person, and nobody knew it. Nobody even knew who he was, but he was doing all the funding. He was the man behind him, behind the man. And so ultimately, what we have is, if we have either the people who fund the politicians and or the intelligence operations who carry out the international narrative of the ruling elite, these are the people who basically are deciding what's misinformation and what's not misinformation. And the great thing about it is this: do we still have some schmucks who are like, I don't know that there's a lot of them in the Republican Party anymore, but the core of the Democratic Party right now is people who believe that the ruling elite are looking out for our best interest. They're people. The core of the Democratic Party, sadly, this is what I believe to be true, are people who believe that the intelligence agencies are looking out for our best interests. Remember this? Trump doesn't trust his own intelligence agencies. Look, you had Democrats literally saying that. When Trump was like, yeah, this I don't know about this Russiagate stuff, right? You're accusing me of being a Russian bot. That's a bunch of crap, and all of this Russia stuff it doesn't make sense to me. And what did the Democrats say? Oh, they were just they had their panties in a bunch. Oh, Trump! Oh my God, no! Oh, please, God, no! You know, Trump doesn't trust the intelligence agencies. He thinks they're lying to us. He's a sick man. He must be stopped. And I'm thinking, he's a sick man. He's the sick guy. You guys got your panties in a bunch because somebody tells you that the FBI and the CIA and NSA are spying on you and lying to you, and that's what you're mad at somebody about. At that point, I realized that the Democratic Party had been the core of the party had been reduced to a quivering mass of jelly, just quivering, waiting for their instructions from their leaders, waiting for the brave men and women of the intelligence community to deliver us from the evil Trump, right? If you think that the CIA and the FBI are your deliverance team, well, they are in a way. They're going to make you squeal like a pig. But my point being this, if you think they're going to deliver you from the evil Trump or anything evil, you're beyond redemption. You can't be saved at that point. Because here's the problem with that. History doesn't bear that out. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if you were with a person whose history was they were a scammer, they were a con artist, they were a thief, they were a liar. All they did, you couldn't trust anything they said. If you turned your back, they'd steal everything that wasn't nailed down. And somebody was able to convince you to trust that person with your life savings and that they were going to look out for you and make sure that, you landed on your feet when you retired. Yeah, just put your retirement in the hands of old Garland and trust me, things will work out. What do we know about Garland? Well, he's a bit of a con artist. He's a scammer. He's a thief, a hooligan, you know. But trust me, this time he'll look out for you. And that's what we get. That's the core of the Democratic Party right now says, trust the intelligence community. They'll look. I mean, this is a fact. This is, factual. The core of the Democratic Party is trust the intelligence community. They'll look out for you. Trust the Biden administration. Trust the leaders of your party. They're going to pick the best person for you. Trust these people. Your trust should be in Washington, D.C. because they're there to help you, but not the Republican Party. See, people like me say, I ain't trusting the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I trust myself. I trust my own senses. I trust my own knowledge. I trust my ability to research and learn. I trust my knowledge of history. I trust my ability to evaluate data and come to a conclusion. That's what I trust. You know what? I do trust the government in the U.S. I trust them to continue to do what they've consistently done. Right? You are what your record says you are. I trust the government to lie to me. I trust the government to, when they said, hey, Garland, we want you to take some medical procedure. I'm like, yeah, you ever heard of the Tuskegee experiment? I'm familiar with that. I trust them to Tuskegee experiment me if given the option. So I'll have none of that, please. That's me. If the government says, look, hey, Garland, we got good news. We're giving you free vitamin D. Take that every day and you'll be healthy. Here's your vitamin D. I'd say thank you right now. And I'd throw it in the trash can because if it came from them, based on history, the last time they gave some black guys some free medicine, it had syphilis in it. Okay. It's called the Tuskegee experiment. Okay. So, no thanks. If you're giving out data, information, misinformation, guidance, if you're giving out some great medical procedure to save my life, yeah, you ain't going to get me convinced in the U.S. government. Right. And so this whole free speech thing is this. Let me get to this. This whole free speech thing to me works like this. What you get is the same thing as democracy. You get the illusion of democracy. You cannot have democracy without informed voters. Even when you argue for IDs or all of these other things, you're wasting your breath. It's all a waste if the people believe that one of the candidates is a friggin' werewolf. Werewolves don't exist. And it's almost a shame because I wouldn't mind if one got, loose running around the White House for a couple nights. It might clean things up a little bit, but unfortunately, that ain't happening. Okay, so all of the things people are missing it. All of the things, the details around an election, the the work, the housework, the handwork, the things that have to be done to make sure the ballots are printed, to make sure people can access, and how are ballots taken from this point to that point, and all of these things. You're being misguided if you're arguing that that's what makes a free and fair election. What makes a free and fair election, starters, is an informed voter. Without that, the rest of the stuff is just garbage. The rest of the stuff is just something to give you an illusion. If you talk to the people out here and see what they believe, why are they voting? I don't know how many people have been really convinced. The only thing they talk about is Kamala Harris's gender and race, which I'm not 100% sure what it is. Supposedly she's black or a woman of color. Or, I don't know. They got names like BIPOC. Hey, that guy's a BIPOC. I punch somebody in the face. Oh, yeah, how dare you call me a BIPOC? Whip, right? A black or indigenous person of color. They got made up names for people now. What the hell difference? What's a BIPOC? What does that mean? I don't even know. So they come up with some name for her. She's a woman of color. Don't know what that means. Not 100% sure. But all I know is that's why you're supposed to vote for her. What about genocide? What about competency? Hey, what about the record of Biden administration? The last 4 years, Ixnay on the Eckerd Ray. Garland, yes, she's a woman of color. She's a Kappa Alpha Psi or something, whatever the hell, right? She went to Howard University. What is it? A historically black. What do I care? What do I care where she went to college? What do I care what her gender is? What do I care what all of that stuff is? So I got all these people. I'm not voting. I'm not saying I ain't vote for Karis. Oh, you don't like a black woman, blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, well, how about Candace Owens? Well, she's a conservative. Yeah, okay. Oh, well, what do you know? Isn't it funny? A black woman, it's kind of arbitrarily, the support for a black woman is kind of arbitrarily applied, ain't it? I can think of 10 conservative black women. What if I find a black woman who's what's the woman's name? Erica Keynes. She's they call her hood communist or something. She's a black communist. She's a black woman. Can I vote for her? Oh my God, no, she's a communist. Okay. What if I find one female who's a member of the Nazi Party? Hey, she's representing the American Nazi Party. Hey, the first female. Hey, she's walking around. She's Sieg Highland. Hey, she could be a Ukrainian. She could certainly be the president of Ukraine, that's for sure. But my point being this, even that's a fraud. Even the argument that we should vote for Kamala because she's a woman, even that's a fraud. Even that's misinformation. Even that is misleading the voters, making uninformed voters. Because the fact of the matter is, remember what I said, in order for you to have free speech and for you to have informed voters, all of those things, what do you need? You need a transparent, consistent set of standards. You should vote this woman because of X. What are the standards I should use to vote for her? She's a black female. Well, then I could question whether or not she's black. Can I? Trump did. Trump said, is she black? Is she Indian? Whatever. Oh my God, you can't question whether she's black. Well, wait a minute. If you're going to call her black, I should be able to say, is she? I don't know. If black people in the black community do it, black people are like, she's Indian. She kind of looks white. Is she really black? She doesn't look real black to me. She kind of looks more Indian. I don't know. What the hell? Even her dad, he wasn't a black person from America. Black people can have that discussion. Why the hell can't Trump? Why can't Trump ask? Is she black? Is she Indian? She was Indian. Now she became black. And they're like, oh, no, he didn't. He can't say that. Well, number one, he has free speech. Number two, you can get your panties in a bunch if you want to. But I know black people that are having that conversation. Why the hell can't Trump? And anybody in an environment with informed voters, any issue that may be of concern to the voters should be discussed. If you want to make the argument that I should vote for her because she's a woman of color or black or something like that, then Trump or anybody else should be able to dispute that point. If you say, well, vote for her because she's black, she should be able to say, I dispute that. I'm going to argue that she's not black. And then I should say, I'm sitting down. Let me hear your argument, Trump. Well, she was Indian before. Now she's saying she's black. What the hell is it? I don't know. Let's call Elizabeth Warren. Let's get a Native American here so we can get her side. It's clearly Elizabeth Warren. We'll get her in here. And as a Native American, I'm sure she'll be able to tell us about women of color, right? I mean, and let's have that. And then someone's going to say, Elizabeth Warren doesn't look like a Native American. How the hell much Native American does she have? Can't we have that discussion? Why is it that we could have a discussion. He could call her Pocahontas. We could have a discussion about whether Elizabeth Warren simply used some tiny percentage of her heritage to get an advantage to go to school. And she cynically used that, I might add, to get an advantage to go to school. Which, hey, I ain't hating on her if she did it. You know what I mean? Look, don't hate the player, hate the game. If she could do it and she got in college, hey, she played the game, right? But I'm just saying, you should be able to bring it up if you're running against her. And if Kamala Harris is going to cynically use her gender and racial background, whatever you want to call it, to garner votes, hey, everybody, vote for me. Why? Because I'm Turkish. Let's just say I say that. Because I'm a Turk, because I'm a Greek, because my grandmother was Irish, whatever the hell, right? If I make that argument, then you should be able to challenge it. Hey, vote for me. Why? Because I'm Greek. People should be able to say, you sure as hell don't look Greek, darling. You don't speak Greek. And how do you look Greek? And right? Shouldn't you be able to ask that question? And I should be able to say, but I got it right here. Look at here. I got my birth certificate. Garland Nixon. Racial, whatever, background, Greek. Well, what makes Garland Greek? And I say, ha ha ha. I was born in Greece and I got Greek citizenship. So, regardless of anything else, if I was born in Greece and I got Greek citizenship, then I'm Greek. And then someone can say, yeah, you got me there, Garland. I mean, I can say how you look. I can say you can't speak Greek. I can say you kind of look like a black dude from Maryland, right? And yeah, but you got for instance, John Kerry's wife was born in Africa. She's a white person, and she has so she has whatever country it was in Africa she was born, maybe South Africa, whatever. But she's citizenship there and citizenship here. She's African American, is she not? She may be white, but she's a white person who's African American. So if she says I'm African American, and you look at her and say, you don't look African American to me, she can say, how the hell does an African American look? I got a I got an ID that says I was born in Africa, so I'm damn sure African. And now I live in America and I have American citizenship, so I'm damn sure American. So I'm an African American. And she could argue there's white people. In fact, let's go further. Wasn't Elon Musk born in Africa? So Elon Musk can probably argue that he's African American more so than I bet you. I'm not sure. I think he has a U.S. citizenship. And let's just say Elon Musk has a U.S. citizenship. Trump could technically make him his VP and say, I have an African American VP, and you guys don't have an African American candidate because the African, he is first generation African. He was born in Africa. He's completely African. So I got an African American, Elon Musk, and you don't. If you think about that, would that be misinformation? No, it would be true. But here's my point with all of that. I go through all of that rant and rumble to say this. Isn't it legitimate for Donald Trump or Garland Nixon? Who else is running? Jill Stein, whoever the person that's running for the American Communist Party, the Socialist Party, the People's Party, the Libertarian Party. Isn't it valid for them to have a debate? And the debate be about one thing. Is Kamala Harris, what is her gender and race or ethnicity? Because she's using that to get votes. And anything you're using to get votes should be valid for a topic of discussion. But we don't have free speech for the two ways. Number one, we have an unofficial court. They've said the court of public opinion. Well, it ain't so public anymore, because one of the things that happens is this. If you say something the machine doesn't like, what does the machine do? It uses the Sunday talk shows. Trump's a racist. He's bringing up Kamala Harris's heritage. It has MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. So what they do is this. They utilize all of these things that are informal and unofficial. Well, should Trump say this? Trump shouldn't be able to say that. And then they use that to argue, well, his voice should be shut down. And everybody. And when Garland says, well, I'm going to have a Twitter spaces to talk about Kamala Harris's heritage and gender, and should we vote for her based on those things? Well, that's misinformation, disinformation, and it's racism. We've got to cut it down. You can't say those kind of things. In other words, things that are valid, issues of discussion are shut down, because the system wants Kamala Harris to win, because there's no such person as Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris doesn't exist. She's just it's like a pipe. What is a pipe good? It's a conduit. You run water through the pipe. You run things through the pipe. The pipe in and of itself, the value of a pipe is, unless you, let's say, fill it with lead and beat somebody over the head with it, or you take a pipe and you smack somebody with the pipe and use it as a weapon, okay. But the normal use of a pipe is what? It's Kamala Harris. The normal use of a pipe is you pass something through the pipe and it comes out the other side. It is a vessel. It is a conduit. Water goes through it. Power goes through it. Whatever the case may be, something goes through that pipe. That's the value of the pipe. That's what Kamala Harris is to me. Power goes through her. She's going to go on. Yeah, I looked on her website, still not. Last I checked, unless there's something recent, there was nothing on there. Not a single policy, zero. It was, hey, here's Kamala, here's Waltz, buy some. She had some pride stickers, I think, some coffee cups, some pictures of her and her husband, and that was it. There was no policy. There was no nothing on there. There was no way to know what she stands for. Why? Because she's a pipe. You don't need a pipe. You know what you need to know when you're anybody? I'm sure there's guys here that have done, girls that have done work with plumbing and things like that. You know, the only thing you need to know about that pipe, the size of it. Is it the right size? Is it the right material? Does it connect with, can you connect it with other? What kind of connector do you need? How about a shark bite? You know, shark bites are great for using for the PVC pipe, right? There's different kinds of pipes. The value of a pipe is that you can pass things through it. That's Kamala Harris. The value of her. Look, they don't need, if you look at her website, let's check now. Kamala Harris website. I'll go there again since I'm here. Let's do this. Let's check it one more time. I hate to talk about Kamala Harris, and I'm wrong. Let's go there. Don't close. Later. Meet Kamala Harris, meet Tim Walk, take action, events, store. Nothing. There is store, donate by mail, free, work with us, frequently asked questions. Let's look at the frequently asked questions. I donated to Biden for president. How can I donate? What is this fund? What are requirements to donate? Is my donation? Questions about donations, question about volunteer, other questions. How can I update my contact info? I never received my order from the store. There is not one thing. Meet Kamala Harris, right? Hey, she's the daughter of parents who brought her to civil rights marches. Bottom line, there's nothing on there. There's not a single policy on there, because you do not need a policy for a piece of pipe, for a conduit. There ain't no policies necessary. The policies will flow through her. They will pass through her. That's why the fact that these two things are aligned. Number one, there ain't a single policy on her website. Number two, that is that she's running based on I'm a woman and I'm of color. Those two things go together. She's running because she's a woman of color. What about her policies? She's a woman of color. But what's she going to do when she gets in office? She's a woman of color. She's going to do exactly what she's damn told by the ruling elite. Trump will, to an extent also. I'm not saying he won't, but I'm saying this. If I go to Trump, I can find a list of like his 20 priorities. I can find a list of his priorities. I can find what Trump's going to do. I can find I don't know if he's going to do that or not, but at least if you're going to lie to me, don't just say, hey, vote for me. I'm a woman of color. Lie to me. Come on, this is America. I expect some lies from a politician, some good ones. Garland, there's going to be a chicken in every pot. We're going to bring good jobs back for people with the retirement and all kinds of stuff, man. We'll give you whatever you need. What do you like to drink? Oh, a little bourbon every now and then. There you go. What do you like? Some good bourbon. Buffalo Trace, bottled for everybody. Buffalo Trace for this man on the house. Make it a double for me. How do you like yours? Neat for this man over here. That's what we're giving you. Some Buffalo Trace, buddy, bourbon. Lie to me. Do something. Buy me off. Offer me a drink. Do something criminal. Whatever the case may be, make a move. But don't just say, vote for me because I'm a woman of color. And then when I dispute that, they have no choice but to try to curtail my speech because you can't allow people to have this kind of discussion because people will start saying that ain't enough. And how come I'm not an informed voter? How come you don't want me to talk about things so I can become an informed voter? And might I add, their concept of an informed voter is that you have absorbed, understand, and are able to reiterate and reflect the narrative that you are given by the government. So when they say vote for her because she's a woman of color, you're an informed voter when they say to you, hey, Garland, what are you going to do? I must vote for Kamala Harris. Why, Garland? Because she is a woman of color. You know what? That guy right there, man, there's an informed voter if we ever seen one. What about you over there, Garland Nixon? I ain't voting for her. Why? I don't know anything about it. Positive misinformation. Quick, shut this man down. He's got to be thrown off of Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of it. He's spreading misinformation. He is questioning the narrative. Free speech. Let me put it to you like this about free speech. Let me end things like this. Free speech means that you protect unpopular speech, and unpopular not with the people, unpopular with the government, and it may be even with the people. Nobody needs anyone to come in and protect them if they're standing on the corner saying, yeah, the government's telling you the truth about everything. The CIA is your friend, the FBI. They're all about justice. Go, Biden, go, go, Kamala, go. You do not need any protection from government harassment for doing that. Now, if you're Scott Ritter and you're saying you're being had, Scott Ritter's giving them the Malcolm X treatment. You're being had, took, lied to, hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray. Now, you're starting to say that the government's lying. You're starting to say that you should question Trump about his policies. Donald Trump, if you want to vote for me, I need your policies. And I need some historical context on the policy. And I need you to convince me that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Kamala Harris, I need to know your policies, the historical context, what have you done, where you come from. I need to know more. I want to be an informed voter. Right? If you're going to do that, then you probably need some protection. That's unpopular speech as far as the government's concerned. If you say, I'm not supporting somebody based on their gender alone, now that's unpopular speech based on the government. Right? If you say, well, I've got some evidence here that Kamala did something, some accusations and assertions and allegations against her or Trump or anybody else. But let's say Kamala, the person who's in power, the person who the machine wants. I've got some information. I want to discuss it and I want to look into it further. Right? That has to be protected. Why? Because, in fact, that's unpopular speech. The First Amendment is there to protect unpopular speech, not popular speech. Popular speech doesn't need to be protected because it's popular. The government ain't going to come after you for saying, because remember, the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights, is the first 10 amendments of the United States, right, of the Constitution, right? The Bill of Rights. These things are freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. Who is that? The government. Freedom from government overreach for the most part. So the First Amendment is freedom from government interference in protected speech. Protected speech, government interference. A company can't really violate your First Amendment freedoms because you don't have freedoms when it comes to a company under most circumstances. There are, there's what is that, California versus Crabtree or whatever it is, where there was a mall and they told people they couldn't hand out pamphlets in this case. And was it Crabtree Mall, whatever it was. And they ruled that it was, in fact, a kind of like a common use area for everybody so that people should be able to hand out political pamphlets in this area. So I'll put it like this. If a corporation, non-governmental entity restricts your speech, you have the ability to go to court and challenge that. And you can maybe argue that it was, in fact, a common area that people use, that it wasn't necessarily that area that the corporation should be able to control and restrict um, protected speech, things of that nature. But for the most part, the First Amendment protects your speech from government overreach. And the issue being, I'll say this, it protects unpopular speech. But the reality of it, it's not what the First Amendment does or doesn't do or what it says, it's how it's applied, right? That's the thing about laws. It's how it's applied. Let me give you an example before I go. This is important. So when Trump, I made an argument to people. I made an argument, and I think it was a bulletproof argument. And it was about when I was with the ACLU, a race-based case. When it came to Trump, it applied. So they charged Trump with, everything but Mobile on the high seas. So they charged Trump with things that they don't normally charge people with. And I had people make the argument, but it appears that Trump is guilty of those things. Wait a minute. The issue is not always guilt. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. It is not guilt. And I gave an example when I was with the ACLU. Howard County at that time, Howard County, Maryland, was 92, because it's not always about guilt, whether or not you can criminal charges are constitutional. Person could be guilty, but the criminal charges could be unconstitutional. Let me give it. And I felt, and still do believe, that the criminal charges against Donald Trump were unconstitutional. Here's what I mean. So what we found at the time was weed was still illegal, right? But only certain people got busted for weed. So in Howard County, what we found was the county was like less than 16% Black, right? It was, at that time, it might have been as high as 90% white, something like that, 85, 90% white. Okay. But 94% of the people who got busted for weed were Black folks. Okay. We did further research and were able to find that an equal amount of percentage in the population of Black folks and white folks smoked weed. So let's say you got 10% of the white folks who of the Black of the people in that county, 10% are Black and 5% of them smoke weed. And you got 90% are white and 5% of them smoke weed, right? Well, guess what? You're going to have 90 to 10 white people smoking weed, but 94% of the people who were arrested were Black. And eventually what we found out was this: white guy gets caught with weed. The cops were like, back then, the cops, I think this was in the 80s. The cops were like, yeah, have a nice day, young man. Black guy cops who gets caught with weed, you're going to jail. Here's my point. That was unconstitutional. Equal protection under the law. Everybody has to. You can't say, I'm going to get this guy and this guy. Both of them got weed. Both of them are illegal. Both of them are violating a law, whatever the contraband happens to be. Back then it was weed, whatever it is now. It's contraband. It's something they're not allowed to possess. We got two people. Both of them possess the same thing. This guy here, we're going to let him go. And we find 10 people over here, we're going to let him go, let him go, let him go. They all let him go. This guy we don't like because he's running for president. We're going to arrest him. And we're going to throw the book at him. And we're going to charge him with 91 charges. That is a constitutional violation. It is equal protection under the law. You let all of these people go, but you wanted this guy, so you went after him. So he wasn't technically charged with that crime. He was technically charged with being who he is. He was charged with a far different crime, the crime of being who he is. And the argument that he's guilty is irrelevant. He may be guilty, and the other 27 people that you let go were guilty. Let's just say all of them are guilty, but you're guilty of violating the Constitution, because the Constitution mandates equal protection under the law. You can't pick someone out for political reasons or racial reasons or gender reasons, or because you don't like them. You can't pick this group out and say this group or this individual we're going after for this crime. And then when somebody comes along and says, well, but that wasn't fair. Yeah, but he was guilty. Sure. And so were all the people that you let loose. So they didn't have an argument in Howard County to say, yeah, but the Black guys were guilty. But the white guys were guilty too. You didn't lock them up. So needless to say, the case was successful. But that was my point with Trump. And that's my point with this whole thing. It is a consistent standard. We've caught somebody with contraband. We caught somebody violating the law. Oh, somebody made this statement and it's a false statement. Is that applied in a uniform manner? Nope. Nope. And I might add this. What we're seeing with Scott Ritter is this. Let me end up with this. Biden administration, the neocons, they're losing. Ukraine is a disaster for them. It is a debacle, and they're doing this Kursk thing into Russia. It is not a sign of victory. It is a sign of pure and utter what's the term I'm looking for? Desperation. It's desperation. They're losing on the front. They're falling apart on the front. They're trying to do something else to change the narrative. Ooh, if we can go into Russia, we can change the narrative. Yeah, you might change the narrative for a while, but you're still going to lose the war. How long are you going to change the narrative? A couple weeks, maybe a month, month and a half, maybe 2 months, the narrative will be changed. Then you're going to lose the war the same as you were before. Meanwhile, what do you have? You got a bunch of knuckle dragging goons running the Israeli government who, I mean, they're just, bottom line is this. We can do anything we want. This is a rules-based order. We can attack your country, and your country says, well, I'm going to respond. Oh, my God, no, you can't respond. That is unacceptable. My God, man, that's insane. You can't respond. That would be terrible fascism. I can punch you, but you can't punch me back. That's the rules-based order. I can move into Ukraine, the U.S., and build bases everywhere and do anything I want to in Ukraine. If Russia says, well, can we put missiles in Cuba or Mexico? My God, no, that would be bad. It's war if you do that. We're the only ones that can do it. Those days are behind us. Countries ain't buying that crap no more. So at any rate, that's all I got to say. Thanks a lot, you all. Enjoy your day. Tomorrow, I'll be on tomorrow morning, Thursday morning at 10 a.m. with the one and only Scott Ritter. We're going to be talking about all kind of interesting stuff going on. So Scott Ritter, 10 a.m. in the morning. Make sure you tune in. Also, I'll finish up by saying this. If you can afford to donate to the channel, you see all that, buy me a coffee and Cash App and PayPal, all that kind of stuff. If you can afford it, that's great. If you can't, save your money. Look out for your family and just share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'm out. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, Scott Ritter. Be there or be square, as we used to say back in the day.